Hello everyone and welcome to Shatavari. Today we are going to understand the next topic of our physiology series, which is homeostasis. We will be learning this topic from basic to get the clear idea about the homeostasis and how it actually works in our body. So let's first start with our definition. Homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to the maintenance of the constant internal environment of the body. Now, if we break this word homeostasis into two halves, it will be homeo and stasis. Homeo meaning same and stasis meaning standing. So what basically homeostasis does, it works in our body in such a way that our internal environment does not change according to the external environment. Because as we know, external environment keeps changing. Sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold. Homeostasis works in such a way that our body does not change according to the external environment. So homeostasis not only maintains our internal body temperature, but it also maintains the hormonal secretions which takes place in our body. We are going to understand this through examples which will be in the further slides. Now this next point I have put for the MCQ point of view. The word homeostasis was introduced by Harvard professor Walter Buchanan in 1930. So here are the components of the homeostatic systems. There are mainly four components. First one is the sensors or the detectors. Second is the transmission of this message to the control center. Now here control center may be the brain or the spinal cord. Mainly the brain is involved. Third is the transmission of the information from the control center to the effectors. And last one is the effectors. Now, the homeostasis basically works in our body through feedback mechanism. This is one of the MCQ in our papers, that by which mechanism does the homeostasis work in our body? The answer will be the feedback mechanism. So basically there are two types of feedback mechanisms. First one is the positive feedback mechanism. Second one is the negative feedback mechanism. So now each feedback mechanism will be learning one by one. And each feedback we'll learn in two parts, which is first we'll look into the definition, what exactly that particular feedback mechanism means, and second we'll understand the example. So let's look into the first feedback mechanism, which is positive feedback mechanism. So positive feedback mechanism. Positive feedback mechanism is the one to which the system reacts in such a way as to increase the intensity of the change in the same direction. So here the main word is increase the intensity. There are two systems or two mechanisms we are looking, which is first one is positive and second one is negative. So these two feedback mechanisms work opposite to each other. So if we look into positive feedback mechanism, this will cause the increase in the intensity of the change. Now this change can be anything. It can be increase in the hormonal secretion. It can be increase in the body temperature. Basically positive feedback mechanism will cause the increase in any change which takes place in our body. Now we'll understand one example. So this is the example of the positive feedback mechanism. First, there is the onset of the labor. Second, there will be a contraction of the uterus. So the fetus to come out from a female body, there are various mechanisms involved inside the uterus. The main which causes the fetus to move out from the body is the contraction of the uterus. Next, there will be movement of fetus into the cervix, which will be the end part of the uterus. Next, there will be the dilation of the cervix. Then the fetus will move through the cervix, and here there will be stimulation of the receptors in the cervix. Now these receptors will send the impulse to the hypothalamus. Now what basically hypothalamus does is, hypothalamus causes release of oxytocin. Now this hormone oxytocin, this has a basic function of contraction. Oxytocin works in two places. First, during the labor, it works in the uterus, and second, it works in the mammary gland. So here in the labor, there is hypothalamus causes the release of the oxytocin, which will again cause the contraction of the uterus. So if we look here, the positive feedback mechanism, how it works here. First, there is contraction of the uterus. Now what we have learned in positive feedback mechanism, that it causes the increase in the change. Now what is the change here? The contraction of uterus. Now what this mechanism is working, it is causing the more contraction of uterus through release of the oxytocin. So this is the classic example of the positive feedback mechanism. Now we'll move to the next feedback mechanism, which is the negative feedback mechanism. The negative feedback mechanism. Negative feedback mechanism is the one to which the system reacts in such a way as to arrest the change or reverse the direction of the change. This basically works opposite to the positive feedback mechanism. Here, whatever the change takes place in our body, the negative feedback basically it either it arrests the change, which means it stops the change, or it reverses the direction of the change, which will cause the reduction in the change which has taken place in our body. Now we'll look into the negative feedback mechanism in detail by understanding one of the classic example. So this is the example of the negative feedback mechanism. Here we are going to learn about the secretion of the thyroxine. We'll be learning in two parts. First, when there is the increase in secretion of thyroxine, and second, when there is decreased in the secretion of thyroxine. Whatever the change is taking place here, the negative feedback mechanism will reverse the change. First, if there is increase in the thyroxine secretion, there will be inhibition of TSH which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Now this, if there is inhibition of the TH secretion, automatically there will be decreased in the secretion of the thyroxine. So by this, here the negative feedback mechanism works, and again the normal level of thyroxine is attained. Now if we see second case where there is decreased in the secretion of thyroxine, here there will be stimulation of the thyroid stimulating hormone, which will cause more secretion of thyroxine, and the normal level of thyroxine will be attained. So in the both the parts, when there is increased or when there is decreased, the negative feedback mechanism will it will work basically to reverse the change or to stop the change. Here in this example, it is working to reverse the change. So this was all about the homeostasis. I hope you have got the clear idea about homeostasis. Please like, share and subscribe to Shatavari. Thank you.